years ago, I was personally responsible for 7th Framework Programme, and we proposed European Research Council as a solution. I had a privilege to be present and opening personally the activity of European Research Council. We had ambition to have a main office of ERC in Wrocław. Maybe some of you could remember that. Now it is in Budapest. Not big difference from the point of view of activity. 100 officials, nothing else, but still it is important from many points of view, but we lost the competition with Budapest. Now we are very much honored to have with us Vice President of the European Research Council, Professor Andrzej Jajszczyk. Welcome to all of us, Professor. We are very glad that you are together with us. We are absolutely sure that European Research Council is the most responsible and most powerful part of our European community from the point of view of steering our research. Because we know, if we are scientists, we know that everything starts from fundamental questions and fundamental research. The European Research Council is dedicated for answering such a fundamental questions. Let me only say a few words, Professor, at the very beginning. First of all, you are graduated for Poznań University of Technology. It is very important because we had some performances from this university. And also, 1994, Professor of Technological Sciences, lecturers, University of Adelaide, Australia, Breton, France, Academy of Mining and Metallurgy. Today, you are engaged in Krakow. In 1917, European Commission nominated you as a member of European Research Council, but 2021, as I remember, you became a vice president of the European Research Council. Let me say, once again, the most influential institution from point of view of steering, independent in some way from European Commission, because you are active on the most independent way, being even elected by European Commission, but it's not the same. You've got a lot of power to be independent as leaders of our fundamental research in whole Europe. And we should remember, as society, Europe and Europeans must be prepared for all the changes and challenges. We must be able to turn them into an opportunity. And if we think seriously about our future, it is absolutely the role of fundamental research. So, if we want really to start serious discussion on our future, we should start as usual from fundamental research and European Research Council. Professor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Buzek, and thank you not only for introducing me, but also for your fundamental role in creating the European Research Council 15 years ago. So may I have my presentation? No, thank you. So I'll be speaking about ERC in its widening participation activities. Essentially, originally I was assigned a 1 hour long slot to speak. Now I would like to save a situation and we'll cut it short, hopefully. We'll see. So Whoops, not that way. Yeah, so I will start with some introductory words, then I will briefly explain the ERC mission and structure, then I will present some general statistics related to our programs, and then I will discuss the factors behind low performance of so-called widening countries, that those countries that lag behind the most developed European countries. Or I can explain now, as the introduction, what does it mean, widening country? It's an official term set by the European Commission, and for every framework program, European Commission decides who is the member of that body. And now, within the widening countries are so-called EU13 countries, including Poland, for example, plus Greece and Portugal. Yeah? Then I will discuss performance of widening countries in ERC calls and some factors that are important. And then I will present what we are doing in terms to widen the participation of researchers from widening countries in ERC programs, and some conclusion. Yeah, so as what already mentioned by President Buzek, ERC was created 15 years ago, so it's a relatively new body. And the idea behind it was that when there were several programs in Europe within many years to increase innovation. However, the success of those programs was sometimes not as expected. European Commission, members of European Parliament studied the reasons why Europe lags behind, especially the United States. And one of the conclusions was that in the United States, most of public money that goes to research goes to fundamental basic research, to universities. What we had previously in the European Union, we mainly financed consortia composed of people from universities, industry, and other bodies. And it worked in some areas, but not necessarily in some frontier invention, breaking what we had before. Yeah? So the decision was taken to create ERC as an institution that could finance frontier research, high risk, high gain research. The aims were to reinforce excellence, especially in new fast-growing research areas, to stay ahead in a world of growing scientific and technological competition, to link science to technological innovation, to compete for talent. One of the problems we had was brain drain from the US. So many good researchers were going from European countries to the US. So we wanted to reverse that. And we did that. In fact, when we look at VRC, we reversed that brain drain. We have that in another direction. We grant money to American young, very good American researchers who decide to come to Europe and to do their research here. And of course, encourage greater investment generally in research. I have technical problems. I'm an engineer anyway, but it's...
Digital Europe not working.
There's something wrong with the pilot, so... Well, yeah. Yeah, so it's something works now. Yeah, sorry for that, but not entirely. Yeah, so when you look at VRC and its scientific governance, not sure. Yeah, one of the important features of the ERC is an independent scientific council with up to 22 members. So these are really good European, but not only European researchers. The scientific council has full authority over funding strategy and evaluation. That's very important. We are funded by the European Commission, but we have lots of autonomy, in practical, almost full autonomy related to our decisions, how to organize everything. And we are supported by a dedicated implementation structure that is an office that supports us, that is based in Brussels and employs about 500 people. What is important in ERC, that is scientific freedom. So the scientific quality is the only criterion for selection. So we don't have consortia. Money is allocated to single principal investigators, single researchers. Of course, they can hire postdocs, doctoral students, technicians if needed to their projects, but this is focused on individual. There is no predetermined subjects, so it's fully bottom-up. So we don't set any priorities saying that this is important, this is not. We are just to wait for fantastic proposals that could turn into major breakthrough in science. So it's, as I said earlier, high risk, high gain. Yeah? It's a risky endeavor, but if it is successful, we can have a breakthrough. And we support frontier research in all fields of science and humanities. So there is no discipline that is excluded. Yeah? If there is a very good idea, a very good researcher, she or he has a chance to receive a grant. And evaluation is based on international peer review. We hire evaluators, top researchers from around the world who assess the proposals. And this is the current composition of the ERC Scientific Council. Yeah, so here we see the some sign of our success. This year, 3 former ERC grantees received Nobel Prizes in medicine and physiology and in physics. And altogether, over those 15 years, 12 our grantees received Nobel Prizes. I think that this means something. As grants we offer, the scheme is pretty simple. We have 5 types of grants. 3 types of grants are, say, our basic types: starting grant for younger researchers, consolidator grants, also for relatively young researchers, but with, say, more experience, and advanced grants without any, say, time limits, but for top researchers and top ideas. We have 2, say, supplementary funding schemes, that is proof of concept. So this is money just to allocate it to ERC grantees only, in the case of proof of concept, who would like to show that their theoretical idea can be turned into reality. And synergy grants, this is a special kind of grant. I mentioned already that we fund individual researchers, principal investigators, but synergy grant is a little bit different because we fund not a consortium, but a joint work of 2, 3, or 4 principal investigators that showed us that there is synergy in their research and they can achieve more working together on the same proposal. So that synergy grants are very, say, prestigious. You can get up to 10 million euros for 6 years. One of the PIs could be outside European research area, that is outside European Union or an associated country. But there's a very limited number of those grants, so it's really difficult to get them. But anyway, success rate in our grants is maybe also not impressive, but this depends on money we have. Now some words about general statistics. This graph shows ERC-funded project by country. So when we look at that graph, we see that in terms of total numbers of received grants, up to now, almost up to now, UK was number one. I use was, not is, because UK now is in sort of a limbo because the association agreement has not been signed yet. It might be signed, but we don't know. But this relates to, say, a higher level politics above ERC. Then we have Germany, France, the Netherlands, Switzerland as an associated country. In the case of Switzerland, I should say also it was, because Switzerland has not signed finally the association agreement for Horizon Europe. It's outside our, say, granting scheme now. Although, of course, Swiss citizens can apply as any person around the world to a grant, but the host institution has to be in the European research area. Look at that graph, we see that those widening countries like Portugal, Hungary, Greece, Czech Republic, Poland, and so on, received a very small number of grants comparing to those superpowers. Yeah, we are talking here about 2,302 grants in case of UK, but for Poland was 54. Yeah? Now a little bit more, but at the date when the graph was created. Yeah? So we have a gap. So next slide, please. Yeah, these were total numbers, but of course we have to remember that some countries are bigger. Yeah, of course it's difficult to compare the number of grants received by UK researchers in UK and researchers in Luxembourg, for example, or Slovenia. Yeah? So success rate is very important. So the ratio between the number of received grants and the number of applications. So here we see that within European Union, number one is the Netherlands, then Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, Luxembourg, and so on. Here there are associated countries, or formerly associated countries, so Switzerland in success rate was number one, Israel is also very high, UK, and so on. And again, the success rate of so-called widening countries is below our expectations. Yeah? And there are some reasons for that. I will explain them later. So next slide, please. Another important issue is that a principal investigator can be from some country, but can do her or his research outside their own country. So those green bars reflect that. So for example, researchers originally from UK citizenship also work outside. In case of Germany, that number is considerably larger. For some countries, for example, like Poland is 50-50, so almost the same Polish nationals receive ERC grant, but working outside Poland as those who decide to do their research in Poland. There are some countries like Romania, where practically almost all but one person who received an ERC grant works outside own country. Next slide, please. Now, some discussion about factors behind low performance. First of all, let's talk about money, because sometimes, especially here in Poland, people say, you know, if we have that money that is available in, for example, in Germany or Switzerland, our research would look exactly the same or even better. Yeah? Which is not entirely true. Yeah, of course, money is important. You cannot do research without money. But when you look at the percentage of GDP devoted to research, Sweden here is number one. Belgium, Austria, and so on, in terms of the percentage of GDP. When we look at widening countries, those numbers are lower, but sometimes not dramatically. Yeah? Next slide, please. Yeah. When we look at Europe per researcher, just in 1 year, in 2019, by country, we see that, of course, it's really good to be a researcher in Switzerland or Luxembourg, but these are very rich countries, like in Germany. Those yellow bars are related to widening countries. And we see that, that money is considerably lower. Yeah? Next slide, please. This is another interesting illustration, I think. It shows the relationship between gross expenditure on research and development in a country and number of ERC grants received. So generally we see dependence that there is more money spent on research and development, there is higher success, but not necessarily. So there are some countries, those countries that are on that curve are exactly that story. So for example, in Italy, there is success in ERC reflects the money they receive. Yeah? But there are some countries that are performing better. For example, UK. So they are better when they have money. Yeah? There are those that are underperforming, like Romania, like Poland, so are below that curve. Yeah? So we see that the relationship is not very simple. Yeah? So it's there are some more complex reasons, not only money. So next slide, please. Yeah, so other key factors. In 2015, we did, say, a very detailed survey. I mean ERC, about the factors behind lower performance of widening countries. And the conclusions were as follows. Yeah, the reasons: scientific isolation, missing culture of scientific excellence, lack of open and merit-based reward system, lack of mobility, especially international mobility, low international exposure, lack of career building programs and long-term research career perspective, non-merit-based recruitment practices in research institutions, yeah? Low salaries for top scientists, lack of additional sustainable funding. Yeah? This is a funding that is allocated in individual countries on top of ERC money. So this is money to support those top researchers. Inadequate research funding systems, lack of support to ERC applicants and grantees. So this is a long list of reasons. Of course, those reasons are a bit different from country to country. Yeah? So next slide, please. The European Court of Auditors, in its special report on Horizon 2020, concluded that the Horizon 2020 widening measures were well designed to target many of the factors that have limited the participation of widening countries in successive framework programs. However, genuine sustainable change depends to a large degree on research and innovation investments and reforms at national level. And this is a very important conclusion. European Commission or European Union in general is not able to solve internal problems of individual countries. So for example, for us in Poland, we have to solve those problems here. Of course, European Commission can help and uses various measures to do that, but generally, this is us who are responsible. Next slide, please. Now about the performance of widening countries in ERC calls. When we look at the number of submissions from widening countries in absolute numbers, we see that over years, for EU13, that red curve is between 300, 500 per year of submissions. And separately, there's blue line for Greece and green line for Portugal. Yeah? So the number is not impressive and not changing much over the years. Yeah, there are some fluctuations, but not important. The next slide, please. When we look at percentages, so in terms of a percentage of applications from widening countries comparing to total submissions. So it was, in terms of widening countries, was between 10, say, and 8%, or sometimes a little bit below, yeah, 7%. Yeah, so it's also not very impressive. We have to remember that there are lots of people and researchers working in EU13 or widening countries in general, yeah, including Portugal and Greece. Next slide, please. When we compare the submissions from widening countries and all other countries, but widening countries, we see that the number of submissions from the other countries is, say, around 8,000 currently, and widening countries, as I said below, around 500. So there is a big difference. We have to remember that if we do not submit a proposal, we don't have any chance to get an ERC grant. Yeah? So submissions are important. Next slide, please. This is a graph explaining some of the problems we have. Yeah? We go a little bit into detail. When we look at marking of proposals within ERC, we have 3 marks. A, this means excellent and should be funded. That does not necessarily mean that it is funded, because sometimes we don't have enough money to fund all A-marked proposals. Then we have step B, that are still good proposals, but not as good to be funded by ERC. And then we have C, proposals marked C, that simply means weak. Yeah? And there are 2 steps of evaluation in those 3 basic grant types: advanced grant, consolidated grant, starting grant. In step 1, there is a rough filtering of the proposals, rejecting those weak that are visibly weak. And then in step 2, there is a more detailed evaluation. So when we look, let's concentrate on the last one, that is total number. When we look at widening countries, more than 50% of those proposals are weak, yeah? Comparing to all countries, yeah? Where there is more or less, yes, there are considerably less, say, weak proposals. So we have problem with especially step 1. We have problem with weak proposals. Next slide, please. Of course, the situation varies from country to country. This is Portugal, Poland, and as you see, that distribution of C, B, and A marks is not really good here. Yeah, yeah. Our performance is bad. Although it is for all Horizon 2020 calls, and I have to say that now situation is improving gradually. This is thanks to various measures taken by various institutions, including I think, first of all, Biuro Doskonałości Naukowej of Polish Academy of Sciences, that now we have lower percentage of those proposals that are weak. Next slide, please. This is a graph that shows success rate in step 1, so that rough filtering of proposals, and step 2 success rate, so those who really succeed in receiving ERC grant. And these are various countries. So you see, when we look at step 1 success rate, for example, for Poland, yeah, we have, say, 12, 13% in step 1, so considerably lower number than, for example, for Netherlands, France, Germany, UK, Switzerland, where it's 35%. But when we look at, for those proposals that pass to step 2, we see a different story. You know, the success rate in step 2 for Polish applicants is the same as those from UK. Yeah? So our problem is step 1. Yeah? But we do have really good proposals. Next slide. And the first slide was related to starting grants for youngest researchers. This is from consolidator grants. The situation looks similar. And the next slide, please. And advanced grant, more or less the same. Maybe the one difference is that our success in both step 1 and step 2 is even lower. Yeah? Next slide, please. And a few words about ERC widening participation policy. Next slide. Yeah, so first, objectives. We have to understand that, say, intellectual capital is distributed more or less evenly across Europe. So it's in the interest, common interest of all European countries to use that intellectual potential. Yeah? And another issue is contribute to a truly inclusive European culture of competitiveness in science. We have to show, within VRC, researchers from widening countries that they have to compete with other European researchers without any special incentives. Yeah? That's important. And of course, we would like to strengthen participation in ERC calls by researchers from less research-performing countries. And of course, we have to facilitate policy dialogue with relevant stakeholders, governments, and so on and so on. Next slide, please. So one of the activities of ERC is to inspire reform. Yeah? So 11 widening countries introduced initiatives to finance their best unfunded ERC applicants. I mentioned that some proposals that are marked A as excellent do not get funds because we don't have enough money. Yeah? So some countries simply finance that research because it's an excellent research, an excellent proposal. Also, a number of countries establish funding schemes inspired by the ERC model. One good example is the Polish National Science Center, Narodowe Centrum Nauki, that is based on the explicit model of the ERC. I know something about that because I was its first director. Next slide, please. We have also some concrete measures. So first of all, we continuously monitor the participation of the ERC calls and the success rate. So we observe trends, what's going on, what are the changes, if something is improving or not. Of course, we try to guarantee as far as possible evaluation process in view of optimal inclusiveness. You know, some experts, these are experts from all around the world, have some unconscious bias against sometimes gender, sometimes geographical location of the researcher. So we try to make them aware that they should fight with that unconscious bias. So they should be fair. Of course, raising awareness on ERC among potential applicants and host institutions. So we are giving talks, presentations, helping various institutions like Krajowy Punkt Kontaktowy, Polska Akademia Nauk, and so on, to send message to researchers, for example, in Poland, about ERC and how to apply, how to be successful in ERC. And of course, we provide recommendations to national policymakers, of course, those who would like to listen to us. Next slide, please. We have two concrete programs. One is visiting fellowship program. So this is the program where researchers from a widening country can spend 1 to 6 months in an ERC research group in some other location, in some other country. We don't finance it. It is financed locally by the countries, but we facilitate the whole process. The next slide, please. When we look at the participation, 9 countries participated in the scheme, including Czech Republic, Estonia, Poland, and some others. When we look at Poland, there is not participating since 2020. Yeah, so that's That's sad, yeah? Next slide. When we look at the interested ERC grantees, so we're asking ERC grantees, are you ready to accept a researcher from a widening country in your team for, say, from 1 month to up to 6 months to work together, and they can learn how to apply, how to work in such a group? And the response was very good. So these are numbers, practically the same numbers for all countries, so there were no, say, prejudices here. Next slide, please. However, that table looks not as good as the previous one. This is the number of visiting fellowships by country of the scheme. Yeah? When you look at Poland, 24, yeah, it looks that we are number 1, yeah? But when we compare Poland with Slovenia in terms of the size of the country, a number of active researchers, this is a very weak number. Yeah? So researchers are not interested in learning from best researchers in Europe how to do research. And that's a real problem. Slide, please. Of course, those fellows, after their fellowship, they have to apply for an ERC grant, which is a prerequisite. So 58 visiting fellows submitted 61 proposals, mainly for starting and consolidated grant, but also for advanced grant. 8 visiting fellows were funded with ERC grants. 30%. This doesn't look very impressive, but it's anyway a higher percentage, higher success rate to get a grant from ERC than if you are not participated in the fellows program. The next slide, please. Another initiative is a mentoring, ERC mentoring initiative. This is a other way around. So this is not taking researchers from widening countries to other countries, but taking ERC grantees, ERC experts to widening countries to mentor proposals. Yeah? Next slide, please. So we had participants, we just started that initiative from Cyprus, from Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Italy, Malta, Poland, Slovakia, and Turkey. Next slide, please. And concluding my presentation, so what I said before, intellectual capital is distributed evenly across Europe, more or less, yeah. But it's not evenly exploited. Yeah? ERC is closely monitoring the situation and takes several measures without jeopardizing our excellence principle. Yeah? So these measures are communication activities, various communication activities that I mentioned earlier, visiting fellowship program, and mentoring initiative. Next slide. Thank you very much. You can get lots of information on our website, on social media, so you have addresses here. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor, for excellent presentation. Maybe not too optimistic, let me say, in very gentle way, but still we should believe that we can improve the situation. I would like to ask the hall, who would like to ask the question or some comment? 1, 2, another one is just looking for presentation. That's great, because it would be, I think, most important just to have some discussion with the audience. Do you agree, Professor?
Sure, I do agree.
Of course. Great.
I can promise you that I'm as long answers as Maria Gabriel.
Yeah, great.
Commissioner.
Great. Thank you. But for me, it was something like 10 or 15 minutes ago, deadline for leaving for airplane to Brussels. So I would like to invite a rector of the university, Arkadiusz Wójs, is together with us. If you could lead the rest of the session, please. You are, well, you didn't expect something like that, I know very well. I would like also to inform all the members of the council of our chamber that Professor Richard Pregel, who is honorary president of the chamber, and thank you very much, Professor, for preparing the whole forum, because you were, as a matter of fact, first organizer. So big applause for Professor. And if you could lead the meeting of the council of our chamber, because I must leave for Brussels, and it's absolutely necessary. I will be very thankful if you could do that. Yeah, so full agreement, as you see, on the whole. Maybe the question to Professor will be with a great disagreement of some. It would be the most important for us to have heavy discussion. But I would like to congratulate you, Professor, once again, that you represent us in such an institution like European Research Council, great institution. And I would like to pass microphone to Magnificency. Magnificency.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the program? Well, just discussion, and lunch time. So very easy program. Yeah. I don't remember it as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you very much. And thankfully, I have to go to Brussels as well, but tomorrow only.
Thank you very, very much. Also for the fact that we have the forum. Okay, so I understood that my job is to open the discussion now. So the discussion is open. Please make comments or ask questions. There is one.
Good morning, Jacek Gajewski, Institute of Nuclear Research. The principle of excellence is also in Horizon 2020 and in Horizon Europe, and somehow your colleagues from other were able to create a dedicated widening program for widening countries. Do you think it is possible in the ERC to have a dedicated contest, or it violates some higher principle?
Yeah, you are right. This is a very good question, but my answer is very simple. It violates our principle. Our principle is that we assess proposals based on excellence only. So we try to help people from researchers from European widening countries, but we wouldn't like, at least this is the decision of the Scientific Council, and there is a common agreement within the Scientific Council on that, that we are not going to spend our money, and we don't have enough. Our success rate is only between 10–12%, so it's very low, and it depends on the money we receive from the European Commission. And we simply would like to spend that money on best proposals, not for proposals from, say, any given region or gender or whatever. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, there'll be another question from here.
Thank you very much. So, Katarzyna Walczyk-Matuszek, I have a question to you, Professor, about the budget, the future budget of the ERC. So currently we face the situation, there is a budget, but it was as well foreseen for the UK as the hosting institution. So we know the situation that due to, let's say, the extended negotiation time, the proposals from the reserve lists manage to receive the funding. What will be the future then of the budget of the ERC in this regard? If you could draw some scenario, will the budget be kept even though the situation, the status of UK remain unclear, or there are attempts somehow to limit the budget to keep the, let's say, top numbers?
It's a real problem. It's a real problem with UK, especially because with Switzerland, of course, to our, say, regret, the situation is clear, we're out, yeah. This is, yeah. But this is politics. But as UK is concerned, we have a very strange situation because the association agreement has been, say, negotiated successfully. So it has been written, but it has not been signed because of the internal border in Ireland. Yeah, roughly speaking. Yeah, the story is more complex, but and we do not know how that problem can be resolved. You know, first of all, we had election in the UK, but we had a new prime minister. European Commission had some hope to start negotiation with Liz Truss. However, as you know, she was very briefly prime minister. Now we will have the next prime minister. Probably it won't be on his, probably his or her highest priority to settle the dispute with the European Union. So we don't know. And temporarily we accept proposals from researchers in UK who would like to do their research in UK, in host institution in UK. So we accept that. And we say, if you win the competition and you are on the list, and if we are starting to sign contracts, if at that time the association agreement is signed, you'll get that money. If not, you won't get that money, but you can move your project to European research area, for example, to Poland. Yeah? We don't expect, say, much run of those people because they are receiving money from their national agencies, and there is a very strange situation because if somebody receives an ERC grant from UK, receives our grant, that decides to do that research in UK, that person receives money from UK, but they are not happy with it because they prefer to receive a grant from ERC because it's very prestigious. It's like a Nobel Prize, no, almost. Yeah? But so we decided that if there is such a situation, they can write on their webpage that ERC, a grant that is paid by UK funding agency, but evaluated by ERC. But the problem, internal problem we have within the ERC executive agency is that we have to process lots of applications from UK without money, because some percentage of that money that is coming from associated countries is to cover our costs. And now we are doing that free of charge, hopefully temporarily. As longer term situation is concerned, we don't know, because there is a pressure from some parts of the European Commission to lower our budget. Yeah, we'll see.
So I will take the liberty to show you the proof that we can do. And of course, if Professor approved this,
Sure.
So I hope that you will enjoy it. So Paweł, please switch the video. So it is a project that is granted at PUT.
And this is a very good researcher.
I had the pleasure to lead the research group within the ERC project, which was funded by the European Commission in terms of so-called excellence science. If I would be asked by someone on the street what we are doing here, I would say that we are trying to make the world better and to make the batteries and the portable devices which are used for storing the energy lighter and performing for a longer time. So it means that we are taking care of the users, because their batteries in the laptops, mobile phones, and even in electric vehicles, they last for longer. So it means they can be used for many, many times. At the same time, we are making the world better, but by environment protection, because less materials, it means less waste, it means better environment. I want to say also that I was enough lucky to get the team who is extremely involved in the science and who is strongly motivated to do the research work. Those are the young science enthusiasts, and they devote a lot of time to reach the goals and to go with me in the road for the better world in terms of the energy storage systems, to save, even if we can say this way, to save the world from the wastes, as they are more and more serious issues.
Let's imagine you go for the shopping and you want to pay by card and your telephone fails. You don't have any battery inside and you cannot do it anymore. Therefore, we want to counter-react this, to stop this effect, that we will be able to work for a long time with an energy storage device without any problems.
I work with hybrid energy storage systems that combine electrochemical capacitors, high power, and batteries, high energy. Together, those systems could create a perfect solution. However, they require an inert atmosphere during their assembling. So water and, especially water and oxygen, are my main enemies. Therefore, I need to operate.
Yeah,
Thank you.
If I may say just one sentence, a long one, but not very. This is a very good example of the difference between ERC and NCN, National Science Center, Polish Research Funding Agency, because NCN is allowed to finance only basic research. In ERC, we fund both basic research. The proposal has to be related to frontier research, high risk, high gain, but it can be applied research, and this is a very good example of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the lunch is at 2, it's right now. At 2, we have the next session. If you ask the question and people will see that it's not an important question, you're in trouble. But a short question and short answer.
So, Przemysław Kazienka from this university. I have actually 2 questions. Maybe I will ask only one. It is about panels. So, so ERC applies the same almost the same structure of panels of disciplines as National Science Center in Poland. But your budget among these panels are much more balanced than in Poland. So my question is about the policy. How do you balance this budget between these panels, disciplines?
Yeah,
which is not valid for Poland.
yeah, you know, the decisions are taken in both cases by the councils of either Scientific Council of ERC or the Council of this is the decision of researchers. Our decisions, of course, we try to give good and almost equal chances across panels. So the same to humanities, social sciences, physical sciences, engineering, life sciences. So we, of course, observe the trends in submissions, and based on that, we try to balance budget among panels to keep the success rate more or less the same. Yeah, to be fair, to give equal chances. And of course, it's not an ideal method, but it's really good. As far as I remember, when I was the director of the NCN, the council of the NCN also put lots of effort to balance the budget in that way. I don't know the current situation, but anyway. Yeah.
Thank you. Any super urgent questions? No? Then let's thank Professor Jajszczyk again.
Thank you very much.